So, here we go, episode 3
Number
of
3.
Chippy Tee. Number 3, before we get this far, eh? We'll start with the obligatory how's your week been?
My week's been fantastic. It's been alright. It's been good.
Well, that's different.
It is, isn't it? I'm usually right misery. But
Yeah, you've normally got something. Yeah, so good things that have happened to you this week then. Come on then. In quick summary.
Nothing that particularly stands out, but it's just been a stress-free week. Done some nice prints, some pretty cool artwork. I mean, we had a shitty situation where we had some muddies returned, but made the best of it. Spot gunned.
Returned why?
Returned because the colour was off. My fault.
Pantone colour or...
So the mistake I made was this. When the original order came through, I was given a Pantone, I mixed the Pantone, and between me and the customer, we just wasn't quite happy. Basically, it was a super light pink, and it just didn't. When printed, it just looked white, to be honest. So we boosted the pink, stuck a bit of red in. Now, the mistake I made was a couple of months later when he reordered, I mixed the original Pantone and forgot the fact that I'd sort of darkened it and boosted it. So there's a slight flaw in my workflow and the way things are done. But it's highlighted it for me now, and what we'll do is we'll start making notes for Pantones. Because normally we get a Pantone, we mix a Pantone and we go to press. But on the rare occasion that we tweak it, what I need to remember now is to note down what the actual tweak was.
Yeah, it's a bespoke colour. So where would you normally store the what Pantone you used? Where would that be stored? In the artwork?
Yeah, so it'll be on the film separation as like a little note near the reg marks and also listed on the invoices. So.
All right, because you don't run a management system, do you?
No, not really. We just have like accounting software and Monday.com, which I use for just scheduling, really.
Oh, yeah, I've come across a couple of people use that.
It's real good, you know.
A couple of people have recommended it as being quite useful. The great debate, of course, is which management system to use, if one, and they come down to off the shelf or bespoke. And having seen everything, I would say the best solution is hire a university graduate, sit him in the corner, keep feeding him whatever they eat, and don't let him go until you've got like a perfect system that works just for you.
Yeah, because every shop's so different. There's the all-in-one solutions. Certain softwares, I can't remember names off the top of my head. I think it's like Inksoft.
I know the names.
Printavo.
I know the names, but I'm not going to say them online.
Right, we'll edit that bit out. But anyway, yeah, there's a few softwares. They look the dog's bollocks, really. They look pretty cool.
I think most of them are now subscription-based, aren't they?
Yeah.
I can remember I only have to go back about 10 years, which for me is not a long time. And we'd throw $100,000 at a project for which would do all the accounting, all the production scheduling, and keep all the information.
Yeah,
that price has drastically come down from there. So we are progressing, but still finding a solution that fits you. That's the issue, because the shop down the road might have the perfect solution; it work absolutely perfect for them. But then you apply it to your working practices, and it's no longer relevant.
Yeah, it's a bespoke thing, and I mean, what works for me don't work for every other shop. But it's also evolves as well. It's an evolving. I mean, this past couple of weeks, we've totally turned everything on its head. From pricing, the way we run things, the way we invoice people, the way we record details of the order for job sheets. I've just turned everything upside down, and I've almost started from scratch.
What prompted that?
Just a couple of errors. I mean, it's so far we've done 3 episodes, and I've told you about all my fuck ups, and it sounds like I do it all the time. I honestly don't. It just happens to have all come at the right time for this podcast. But there's a few things that made me think, you know what, there's room for improvement there. And then pricing stuff. I mean, that one's obvious. It's just fucking expensive right now. Everything's super expensive, and
you can't have a static price list that you say you're going to stick to for a year, because the price of things that you purchase and the price of even labour is changing so rapidly that keeping up with it is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and I've sort of discovered as well that having a static price list in terms of number of colours in the print, quantity in in price brackets, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, whatever. That doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work. It's you're too boxed in, and it doesn't account for the amount of man hours that I'm going to have to put into any particular job. So adapting to that, I'm hoping there's going to be a bit of a boost for a business, just profit wise and productivity wise, because it's also highlighted things where maybe there are certain jobs that I've been doing that are just not cost effective, and that time could be spent doing more cost effective jobs.
I think it's a slippery slope. It's a real difficult balance to get right, because what you end up with is that, are you a service? Do you provide a service? Or are you selling a product? If you're selling a product, then obviously you've got to almost price per job.
Yeah.
But if it's a service, surely it's sort of more like a standalone cover-all price. And it's a difficult one to sort of like match where you are. Whether you take the opinion that you win on some jobs, you lose on others, which goes down the you provide a service, or whether you go there, right, okay, if you buy a printed shirt from me, it costs you this much.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one to get right.
I think you win and lose on some, but I think you're sort of going down the route of let's just use for example somebody you've never heard from before, a new customer, and they only want 20 t-shirts. The amount of time I have to put into making the screens, etc. There's not an awful lot of difference between that job for 20 prints as there is for a job for 100 prints. Really, when it comes down to it, the setup time there's not a lot in it, and then the printing time, probably half an hour's difference, maybe half an hour to an hour. I think my conclusion is, I've made a lot of changes. We're definitely going to increase our minimums by a little bit. In the past, we've offered as little as 10 prints.
Yeah, you've got to try and get the most out of the hours you put in, haven't you? Because that's your limit as to how many hours you can actually work, and getting money out of those hours is the difficult thing to achieve. Yeah, I totally understand. I think it's the same problem that everybody gets, Danny. I don't think it's uniquely yours. It's the same balance that everybody has to try and get. The first shirt that we ever print is the most expensive shirt, and it only ever gets commercially viable by expanding the numbers. If it costs us 50 quid to print that first shirt, then that one shirt is 50 quid. If we then print another 49 after it, then all of a sudden the cost of that shirt's down at a quid. And obviously the whole industry that we work in was set up for mass production. We were set up, keep telling the story, when I first started, the minimum order was 3,000 pieces. Nobody would set up a press for less than 3,000 pieces. You'd be crazy to. And now, like you said, we'll set up a press for 10 pieces now if need be.
Yeah. That's crazy. I guess maybe that's a sign of competition. Maybe there's that much competition.
The consumer changed. That's what it was. The consumer changed. All of a sudden, the consumer is sat in his pants at midnight ordering something, and he wants it next day, and he only wants to buy 2 of them.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if you wanted to buy printed stuff, you had to go and find a contractor, and you had to go and work out exactly how many you wanted, pay up front, and pay for something that you'd never seen, like screens and films and artwork.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you had 1,000 pieces, of which you only actually wanted 100. But you had to buy 1,000 because that was the MOQ, the minimum order. You would soon fall by the wayside if you kept your order quantity above 1,000.
Oh yeah.
Nobody would come to you.
Not now. You couldn't get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think maybe technology is to blame a little bit. It's easy to make a one-off T-shirt now if you've got a heat press and a vinyl cutter.
Yeah.
Or
a DTG machine.
Yeah. Back in the day, back in prehistoric times, we had a DTG machine.
I can still remember it.
Yeah.
I can still remember prehistoric times. I can remember first DTGs coming out and thinking, "Oh my god, this is revolutionary! This is awesome!" And well, let's just say it won't. And you just have to spray the shirts with a squirty machine, a squirty bottle.
Yeah.
Oh god, no, absolutely not.
It's all preheat machines and stuff now, isn't it? Pre-treat machines and
Pre-treat machines. Yeah, it's a different animal now. I think I'm quite excited that the next sort of 5 to 10 years are going to see some revolutionary changes in the way that we actually decorate shirts.
Do you think it'll ever put a knife in screen printing though? No, I don't.
There'll always be a void for it. There'll always be a space for it. I'm fortunate enough to. We've got onto a dark subject here, but I'm fortunate enough to. This one needs some unpacking, Danny. This is a beast of a subject. But, I can remember working in the point of sale industry in the 80s, and one of the machine manufacturers coming in and bringing in this £1 million piece of equipment called a digital printer that would replace the current screen printing point of sale guys. At the time when we had a single colour or semi-automatic line that if you wanted 3 colours, it went through the machine 3 times.
Right.
And the screen guys would sit back and point and laugh and go, look at the fucking state of this machine. Costs £1 million. It prints about 4 pieces an hour. God, you need a degree to set it up. By the time you've fucked about with all them buttons, I've got my screen in, put the squeegee in, and I've printed 1,000 by the time you're even pissed about. There's no future in this. And now if you fast forward, sort of like, I always think the 80s 20 years ago, but it's not as far years ago. So you fast forward to now, and you try and find a screen printer that still screen prints commercially onto paper and board. They've all been replaced with digital.
Yeah, it's rare you see it.
It's a matter of speed, quality, and cost. Those 3 things. Those are the dividing factors. Excuse me. Speed, quality, and cost. The speed. So in the early days of digital paper printing, graphic printing, the speed was not there. It was so slow.
Yeah.
The quality, it beat screen absolutely hands down on quality. The cost was still high for the ink. And then what they did, they worked slowly on those 2, the cost. The ink started to get less. We got more control. We got more buying in bulk, and all of a sudden now the cost is very similar to screen printing. The quality was always higher. All we've got to do then is work on the speed. And right now, the speed of the digital is higher than the speed of the analog screen print.
Yeah.
So as soon as those 3 barriers are broken down, that's what really sounds the death toll for normal analog printing. Now, if you've had any exposure to digital printing, you'll know that the cost is still prohibitively high, the speed is abysmally low, and the quality is awesome. So we've got 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
And from those 2 out of 3, then if we just break one of them down, and let's say we get the speed up there, all of a sudden, people start interested again.
Yeah.
And we start to get the cost down, people get interested again. But right now, we're still in that sort of like golden age where out of the 3, digital's only beating us on 1.
Yeah.
I think it's coming, but, I keep saying it's 5 years away. And I've said that for 15 years, so I still keep saying it's 5 years away.
Yeah, I sent off a T-shirt. I had somebody came to me for some, I think it was like Mickey Mouse T-shirts or something, but it was off to Disneyland. I said, look, I can't set up screens to do this. But
Metallica.
No, it won't be Metallica, no. Actually, I've got some hoodies and I've tie-dyed them, and I'm thinking, what can I put on these? And they've got a bit of a metal band vibe, so
Don't do it.
I won't do it. No, what are you kidding? Yeah, so we got these 2 Disneyland T-shirts, and I thought, well, I'm not screen printing them, so I thought I'd just contract it out to a DTG printer. And this was a few years ago. This was like 5 or 6 years ago, and they came back and they were pixelated and grainy, and it just looked utter crap. That put me off DTG for a while. But I've seen some DTG prints of a past year, and in that gap, it looks totally different kettle of fish. It looks way better already. So I think
the quality, they beat us on quality every time, Danny. Every time. Without
Do you really
doubt,
think?
Quality is awesome. Yeah, absolutely. The stuff that's available now, with either a wet pre-treat or a dry pre-treat, the quality is such a high resolution. You're talking like 1200 DPI.
Yeah.
Where you compared to screen print at the top 65 LPI, then it's a world of difference away.
I could go buy a DTG machine for 10 grand. I don't think those are the machines you're talking about that are producing. Because what I've seen from them machines, I could.
So around about 30 grand, the quality is awesome. You step up to 400 grand, and the quality is, there's not much difference between the 30 and the 400. But both of them
Right.
beat the tonal quality of a screen print. Do they beat the straight vector quality?
No.
No,
I know what you mean by that, because I imagine there's still a graininess, a pixelatedness. Pixelatedness.
It's same as anything. I played with a couple of these machines, and my remit was to get the best possible print, which I did, and the print was awesome. And even I, as an old analog screen printer, was really, really impressed with the quality of the print. And then when we did the calculations backwards and worked out the 6 quid worth of ink on it, it was like, hang on, what can we do about this? Okay, let's dial everything back so that it's now economically viable, and the print didn't look anywhere near as good, where I got the price down to about 2 quid worth of ink. So, it's all...
Yeah, I'll tell you something as well. You need to keep them buggers running. I had a large format printer a fair few years back, and if you're going to invest that amount of money into anything like a large format printer or a digital printer, you need to know that it's going to be running every single day. Because if you have any downtime, the fucking heads on them things are going to clog, and they're an absolute bastard to fix. Worst case scenario, your head's fucked, and you're talking thousands to replace it. And I know this by experience, because my large format printer fucking died on me, and it cost me a lot of money to fix it. And I never looked back. I got rid of a bugger, and I won't go back either.
Any digital print needs to be kept running as a standard. They've got better with recirculation units, and they've got better with automatic maintenance routines. But then, the more of those you get, the more the price goes up, and you're moving away from 30 grand again. So, they are better, but they're still not perfect.
No. So to conclude, what we're both saying here, I think we both agree, DTG's shit. It'll never take off. How's your week been, Tony? Have you had a good week?
No, I've had a mare.
Have you? Oh, God.
I've had an absolute mare. I don't get them very often.
Go on.
I mean, you know what I do. I don't print, so I've got quite an easy life normally.
Yeah.
And a customer has asked me if I could help them do the prep and the sort of like the background of this job. And I said, yeah, sure, send me the job. They sent me the job, and it looked like an absolute pig.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I don't want to do it. I honestly, I don't want to do it. Number one, it's not my shop, so therefore you've got this whole culpability thing.
Yeah.
And teaching someone they're 180 mile away from me. So trying to teach someone who's got an auto press, but hasn't really got the backup to do this, what was an 7 colour job using high tones on a branded product.
Yeah.
And what that did, that made me think, hang on, come on, Tony, put your money where your mouth is. You can't just pick and choose your easy 1 colour jobs. If you're going to, my job is as a consultant, and I trade on having the knowledge to be able to produce work. And I thought, I can't walk away from it. A professional sort of pride, if you like, is I can't walk away from it.
Yeah.
So I agreed to help the guy, and he went, look, he said, I can put this job back for a week if you can come down and actually physically print it with us rather than just going to help us. And at that point there, I wanted to run away. I thought, oh shit, what have I done? Now I can't back out, because obviously now I've got real professional pride at stake. Now I'm going to come down all in the big bollocks. And I've got to stand up for myself and put my money where my mouth is and do this job. So I did as much prep as possible. I got the sets separated by a real professional guy that I know. I got them to buy new mesh, buy new blades. I set everything out. All the prep was supposed to be done as soon as I got down there. And I threw the job in, and it looked shit.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know what to do. If I stick to my... if I practice what I preach, then this job would have to come off the press, be redone, remade with very limited resources, because these guys have bought these 90s especially for this job.
Yeah.
And then they hit me with the bombshell. The customer's coming at 5 o'clock today to pick them up. It's 2,000 prints. Can we do it?
Oh.
So I'm under pressure of professional pride, deadline, and this stuff that I've got that's not looking like it's going to work.
Yeah.
So I basically pulled on 30 years worth of experience to, at any cost, make this job work.
Yeah.
So I broke lots of my own rules. I did what you did, funnily enough, with a pink, and mixed it bespoke on the fly. If that job comes back, I've got absolutely zero idea what I put into that pink to make it work. I know which colours I put in, but I didn't measure them. I didn't use scales like I tell everybody to use scales. I didn't do it.
No.
I changed colour orders around. I actually made one screen from 2 films using Photoshop. Went back in and changed everything. Finally set it all up. The customer thought it looked lovely and agreed to run it. And I didn't like it.
Oh.
I didn't like the print. And I'm faced with this dilemma of, well, the customer likes it, the customer approved it, the customer's had it signed off by his customer. I don't like it. What do I do? The courier's coming at 5 o'clock. I've got 2,000 of these to do, front and back, different designs. I hadn't even made the front screens yet.
Great.
And so we went with it. And it was completely commercially acceptable to a lot of people. But there was just something in my head that went, I don't like it. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't change anything else. I've used everything. Every single weapon in my arsenal has been completely expired. I've got nothing left. And this is all I can do. This is as good as I can get it. Was it commercially acceptable? Yes. But as a printer, looking at it with a printer's eye, I didn't like it. The tones didn't work for me. They should have done. What I should have done, right? Okay, what I absolutely should have done is say, right, okay, we can't do this job today. I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to do some experimental artwork with it. I'm going to have to change it. I have to. It wanted an extra 2 colours in there, but I've only got an 8-colour press. I can't put the colours in there. Nothing I can do. I can't magic the spaces out my arse.
No.
And so I almost, I'm going to use the words compromise. I compromised and we ran the job. And it ran lovely. You know, the actual physical running of the job, I'd set everything out so there was no pickup. It was wet on wet. There was no cooling station. But the actual running of it was a piece of piss.
Yeah.
I had to double stroke the white. And if you know anything about me, I hate double stroking. Double stroking means something's wrong.
Yeah.
But it was my only solution. So, you know, I've been sat there in my ivory tower, sort of dictating to people, oh, you should never double hit. You should never double hit. Something's wrong if you double hit. And there I am going, well, the only solution to this is to double hit.
Yeah. Sometimes the science and the rules of screen printing, it just goes out the window because practically sometimes you just have to adapt. Sounds to me like you've just had a day in the life at Flipping Sweet, to be honest.
But it's funny you should say you could sum it up like that. Because I've got the separation file up on my computer and I'm doing it and I'm trying to work out what I can do to increase some colours in this area and not colours in this area. And my printer's brain took over and went, I know what I can do. I can basically sellotape this film to this film. Make it and block this bit out and do this and do that. And it worked. So in my head, I knew the solution. I found the solution, implemented it, put it onto press, and it worked. The issue was, I was there to train his staff.
Yeah, and you've trained them all wrong.
I can't. Looking at the logic of the design, looking at the logic of what we did, that wouldn't work. There's nothing I can physically say to teach them. What made you decide to do that, Tony? Well, it's just years and years of having to do this sort of crap. I just picked that out of the thin air and thought, what can I do to make that and that work together? Put that with that. And if you'd have asked me on the phone and said, Tony, can I put that with that? I'd have said, no, don't be silly. Of course you can't.
Yeah.
But I did it, and it worked.
And it worked.
I know, yeah, but how do you transfer that as my job is supposed to be teaching people how to do this. I'm like, well, what did you do, Tony? Well, I just absolutely blagged it. I called on years of experience. No, I blagged it. I wasn't sure what I was making was going to work until I pushed the ink through the holes, and it did work.
Do you know what? A lot of people think we are screen printers, but we're not. We're firefighters. We are constantly putting out fires and solving problems and doing things.
I feel like Harry Potter. Yeah, about a firefighter.
It might have been. Aye. But this is just what we do. We're faced with a problem and we have to solve it. And transferring the art on a digital screen onto a physical T-shirt product using mesh, using some I don't know, plastic, whatever it is, some old flip flop. It's sometimes the science behind it, and you can do everything by the book, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't give the desired results. And,
yeah, this didn't work. I had to pull out all the stops of stuff that, if you looked at them logically with a sort of like a logical brain, there's no way that would have worked, but it did.
Basically, if anybody other than you looked at them, they'd have looked mint. But you being a screen printer, just like I would have done, you saw something you didn't like and you wanted to change it, but under the stress and pressure of getting it done on time, you just had to run with it. And
that's something I try and teach people, not to try and print to the dispatch date and to try and do things properly. And, there's a real world solution, but, sometimes we've got to say, look, right, stop, let's think about this, let's do this. And I think I'm a little bit disappointed in myself that I succumbed to that pressure of the couriers coming. The customer's had it. He's waited a week already. I've told him I've got a maestro down here to come and sort it for us. And, I'm sat looking at what I think is not really as good as I imagined it to be. Nothing special about the job at all. It was straightforward. It should have worked. It just didn't when it transferred to the T-shirt. I didn't pray to the squeegee gods that morning. I think that's what it was.
Did you pinpoint what exactly was causing it to, not give you the desired results? Or was it just a complete mystery to you at this point?
No, my first strike off looked fantastic, acceptable, superb, didn't change anything, did everything as I would have instructed people to do from remote. But then the owner comes along, the customer comes along and says, yeah, the only thing is, we've done something like this for them before, and they really want the fuchsia magenta to pop out of that area of the design there.
Right.
And I looked, and there wasn't any fuchsia or magenta in the ink. Didn't have one.
Right.
I said, okay, but they also want to keep this orange part here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not even printing orange. We're using yellow and red mixed. There isn't an orange screen. So the two bits of colour you say the customer is really focusing on, and I only find this out now, they haven't come out in the separations. They're using a mixture of other colours to make those. So I can't change one area. I have to change the whole area. I can make it all redder. I can make it all more fuchsia. But I can't make one area without rechanging the artwork. So pinpointing the problem, twofold. I should have been made aware that the fuchsia area of the design was the most relevant, like Coca-Cola only look at the red.
Yeah.
Then on this, they were looking at the fuchsia element. And the artwork wasn't really separated to highlight that colour.
No.
So really, I was dealing with, I don't want to use the word bad art because it wasn't bad art. The art was done, and the digital visualization of the image on a monitor looked bob on.
Yeah.
There were lots of different things.
They just didn't translate.
Well, there's lots of little, and I do say this to people. It's never one thing wrong with the screen print. If something's wrong, it's never one thing. There were lots of different things. Let's say, for instance, I'd given the instruction to make the base on a 62. When I got there, it was made on a 90. And
Right.
I didn't have a 62, and I didn't have the time to remake it. So hence the double hit.
Yeah.
This also lost me some power underneath the colours that should have been there, and they weren't.
Yeah.
One of the colours in the design was 806. Now, if you know 806, it's a fluorescent, a Day-Glo colour.
Yeah.
They didn't have any Day-Glo ink. So straight away, I'm losing power in the design right from the very beginning. And it hampered me a little bit, because then I've got to try and work out ways of getting that power without using that ink, getting that power without having the dots big enough or bold enough to be able to get you some opacity behind them. So wasn't one thing, it was a catalogue of errors.
A catalogue of errors
on my behalf.
Well, do you know what? It's from what I've heard, it sounds like it could be wrapped up into a catalogue of errors that are actually just management errors. So if you would have been pre-briefed and you would have passed that pre-briefing onto your separation guy and say, look, the fuchsia needs to pop here. If you would have known that in advance, it also falls down to the shop in some extent. One, they've not got enough screens, because you told me you should have had the base on a 62 and they only had 90s left, so they did it on 90s, which I'm not on my high horse here. I do it all the time. A lot of these could have been preempted and squashed at the start, but this is what happens in a print shop.
And this is what part of my job is to teach people this, that sometimes these things happen. We have to put out fires as we go along, but we also have to grease the wheels to keep everything running. And it just brought home to me that, not everything's perfect. No, nobody knows everything. But, it just goes to prove, it's a bit humbling in a way that, you can get caught out by any job. It doesn't matter what it is. At any point, you've still got to try and keep your wits about you and just do what you need to do to keep the job running.
Yeah, it's a very similar situation to what I'm in, is in where I'm talking about preempting things, pre-planning, having enough screens at all times, having the right inks in at all times, having two of everything, little things like that. When we spoke earlier about me, totally turning everything on its head. These are the things I'm talking about. Just being prepared for any eventuality as best as you possibly can, because you'll never ever be 100% efficient and prepared at all times. It's just not going to happen. But little things like that you can try to improve. And now, when I settle on a ink system, I'm going to have two. All my supplies I'm going to double up. Screens, I've got a ton of
that increases your inventory then, which obviously increases your stock. At any given time, you might have 10 to 15 grand sat on the floor doing nothing.
Well, my theory behind that is two of every. So if I have an ink mixing system, two of every colour. When one's out, reorder it. But you've just always got that backup, just in case anything goes to.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily
that's
see.
Standard. Yeah, that's standard. I have customers who that figure is 4.
Yeah.
And they always keep 4 in stock and 1 open.
Yeah.
And they're constantly doing it, because sometimes when you hit a yellow and you've got a big production run, it can eat 4 tubs of yellow, in the time it takes to get some in.
And you never know when there's going to be a shortage. There's that to consider.
Yeah.
So
been through that, yeah.
Prepare. What's the word? Prepare to fail. Prepare to fail. Don't fail. I think that's the slogan, isn't it?
That's going on a t-shirt.
Prepare. Oh, I can't say it now.
It's fail
prepare
to prepare.
Prepare to fail. Don't do a shit job. I think that's it.
That's exactly it. It's fail to prepare to fail.
That's the one.
Yeah.
You know what I meant?
I did, yeah. I prefer your version.
That's what's going on in Muddies.
That's the tie-dye ones.
Yeah.
Metallica on back.
I'm going to do it in Metallica font.
So yeah, that's the sort of like the sum of my week, really. Things can only get better. I think that's the theory behind this week.
Yep. you've always got to find a silver lining, haven't you? And
Yeah. Look, the job got printed, the job went out, and everyone was happy. We're in that twilight hour, and you must have experienced this. You've done a job, you're not 100% happy with it, but you think it's commercially acceptable.
yeah,
You know the customer, you know the expectation of the customer. You send the job out, and you sit and you don't breathe for 2 days.
100%.
You
All the time.
You sat there thinking, right, next day, customer's got his shirts. He must have gone
Yeah.
by now. I've got a courier notification to say that he's got them, he's received them, he's signed for them. If he thinks the shit, I'm going to get a call the next hour. Next hour goes by, you don't get a call. 2 hours go by, you think, yeah, I'm all right. The day ends and you think, yeah, I've got away with that. And then the second day, the customer rings you and you don't want to pick that phone up.
Yep.
And you pick the phone up and you go, hi, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's superb. Just want to say thank you for the shirts. They look absolutely fantastic. Great job. Can't wait to work with you again. You put the phone down and you go, how did I get away with that?
That's
sirens in the background. Awesome.
I can hear it.
It's not Cindy Robin Aldi like it was with you. You're all right.
No. That's that feeling I get all the time, especially right now, especially after this past couple of weeks. Because as I did mention, I don't make mistakes that often. But this past couple of weeks,
we're trying to stick to one a week, aren't we?
One a week. One a week. Jeez, I mean, I am at the minute, but this past year's been all right. I've not. They all come at once, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess that's attributed to exactly what you've just said. Your stress levels are on high. Your anxiety's through the roof because you've messed up one, and then you're like, oh shit. You're waiting for that email. Anyway, this is why I got Jasmine at the end, because I just can't deal with that stress and pressure and anxiety all the time. It's much easier when you've got somebody who, at the end of the day, gets paid no matter what and is somewhat disconnected.
Yeah.
Because there's a screen. Me personally, and I'm sure plenty of others are the same, there's nothing worse than getting an email where something's gone wrong. I take it so personally.
I do. I can't do criticism of my prints, and as I became a manager and further up the line, if I printed something and somebody critiqued it, it was like they were calling my kids ugly. I was so defensive, I couldn't agree with them that it was a bad print. It's not a bad print. Oh, it's superb. Is that you won't get a better print than that? That's awesome. I've used everything I could possibly use. That's the best print you'll ever get. No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's supposed to look that colour.
Yeah,
I've done everything.
Yeah, this is why you need it.
Looks better.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to just put somebody as a barrier between you. Not that you like. Yeah. We all need adjustment, definitely. Yeah.
So what else has this week doing for me? So this week, a couple of sort of things that have hit me this week. These aren't highlights or lowlights. These are just things that have sort of hit me.
Observations.
Going through this week because now some fool said, "Shall we do a podcast?" I've got to start thinking about content through the week. just normally amble through the week, so I'm totally oblivious to stuff. Now I'm looking at stuff and going, "Oh, I'll have to write that down. That might be good."
Yeah.
So a couple of things that really, really jumped out at me. 1, 4-day week. So a couple of customers and suppliers and people around everywhere in the industry have adopted this 4-day week mentality. And it made me question, am I really that much of a dinosaur? So for me, a working week is 5 days a week. It's a 5-day week, and with extra or without extra, or whether it's 39 or 42 and a half hours, it's around that Monday to Friday, 8 till 5. If you want to finish early on a Friday, all right, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But it seems to be the norm that the 4-day week is sneaking its way in, and the 3-day weekend is becoming popular. Now I know 100% from an employee's point of view, bring it on.
Yeah.
But from an employer's point of view, I'd find that very difficult to manage.
Yeah.
What would you do if the ladies that work with you suddenly said, right, that's it, we're only doing a 4-day week? I know they only do 2 days. They only do half days, don't they? But
Yeah, but I could put myself in those shoes. I can see the pros and cons, and honestly, it's something that I've thought about doing myself personally. But that's easy for me to say because
it's your money.
it's my money. It don't make any difference how many days. If I work 7 days or 3 days, I don't get paid any different.
No.
So it's easy for me to say 4 days, flat out, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. or whatever, and then 3-day weekend. That's the ideal scenario for me. But for me to have, let's just say, Jasmine and Jade, we're both here 5 days a week normally, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, like a normal, typical job. And then if I was to say to them, right, sack off Friday, I'm going to pay you exactly the same. If it increases productivity...
How can it? How can it if you're reducing the amount of hours that you work?
I guess the theory is you're more rested, you're less stressed, unless you're trying to squeeze everything in 4 days, you know? I don't know. It's a very, very hippie scenario, hippie way of thinking, isn't it? But
it's what I call the Google mentality, isn't it? You know, we used to hear stories when Google first started that, come and work at Google, and we've got slides in the break room, and you can work your own hours, and everybody can play games whenever they want, and we just want you to be creative. You don't have to be productive all the time.
Yeah.
Which I suppose in that sort of environment would work, but I want to turn the press on and run 3,000 pieces. Yeah, we're having a little bit of a party in the corner, it's a mental health day.
Yeah.
No, we're here to work. Am I just a dinosaur now? This is my real question: is am I a dinosaur now?
I don't think so, because I would have the same concerns. It's very difficult. I think there's a balance there. Again, with everything, there's always a balance, isn't there? But I know when I first started and I got a bit big for my boots, and I was doing all my knockoff stuff. And I had 2 full-time employees. So not like today. Back in the day, quite a few years ago, 5 days a week, 9 till 5. I had 2 employees working for me, and I tried to be that Google boss. I had beanbags all over the shop, and I let them bring in beers on a Friday. We've talked about this. We have Ale Fridays, and I encouraged it. And that only works if people who work for you are super productive, don't take the piss. What actually happened for me, and I'm sure it's going to change and be dependent on the person you employ. One of the employees took the piss, to be honest. Really took the piss. Turned up when they fancied. Sat on a computer for most of the day, and they'd mysteriously jump up whenever I was walking by, and then start looking active and typing away and stuff. And so I don't know. But then in the same breath, if I gave Jade and Jasmine some leeway, they wouldn't take the piss, because they're decent enough and they know what it means to me, and they're just not that type of person.
No, but if you had one in there that did take the piss, you'd have to then enforce a rule onto Jade and Jasmine, who have been good and loyal, but you'd have to apply the rule across the board.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard being a boss.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, no friends.
I don't like it. This is why I don't foresee myself growing. Not being big-headed enough to say that I could just do it like this, but anyway, given a choice, would I necessarily grow to a big shop where I've got multiple autos and lots of staff? Sod that. That's not for me. I couldn't do it.
No, printing's the easy bit when you get that big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's I don't know. It's very difficult, isn't it?
It is an odd one, yeah.
For me personally, it'd work a treat for me. I mean, I'd have to absolutely force myself to stick to it. But paying someone else to do it.
Do you work weekends?
I work weekends a lot, yeah.
But do you do it as an escapism, or do you do it as a quiet time when the phone's not ringing and you can get shit done that you wouldn't normally be able to do through the week because there's no expectation of couriers?
But this could get real deep now.
Isn't it?
Dear. You've opened a can of worms. Oh, Christ. Psychologists are going to come in a minute.
Yeah.
I've had some deep talks with some professionals about this, because there was a time when I was struggling a little bit, and I was working flat out every single day, all the time. And the moment I woke up, the moment I went to sleep, if I could get to sleep, all I was thinking about was this business and trying to get somewhere with it. And what I did find out eventually is all you're doing is holding yourself back.
Yeah.
And you've just got to have a separation. Now, what I found out about myself a little bit was that it turned out that me, Danny, and Flipping Sweet completely merged. It was the same thing.
There's no defining line between the two.
Absolutely none at all. And this even reflected in my shop. My shop at the time, I had artwork up that, like my favourite films or video game characters, and then obviously I had all my work stuff. Everything was blended together, and I was coming into work and I'd have a movie on it background. I was working flat out, but I'd have a horror film on it background or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was almost like me print shop was my bedroom.
Yeah.
There was very little difference.
No separation.
No separation. I found out the hard way after burning out stupid amount of times that there has to be a separation. There has to be Danny, who goes about and has an hobby and has a bit of time away from the shop. And then there has to be Danny, who comes into work and cracks on and works as hard as possible. But if you don't get that downtime, you just drag yourself backwards. You can't take your business forward because all you're doing, you're just burning yourself out. And when it comes to burnout, I've pushed myself numerous times to absolute burnout, and then carried on pushing through, and just getting on with it. And it's took me a lot of times doing that before I learnt my lesson. And I think I finally cracked it. I realise now. I mean, this weekend, I'm second job off. I'm going away for a weekend. Well, I'm not going away, but I'm going to have a couple of days off. Because, like I say, the past few weeks, we've had a few problems occur, a few emails and what have you.
And you're going to lock the shop up on Friday and not think about it until Monday, because the problems will still be there, whether you go in and work yourself to bone or worry yourself daft over it. They're still going to be there. Yeah,
that's the first sign.
Totally human thing to do. I absolutely agree with it, and I fully encourage it.
Yeah, that was a sign. Problems are cropping up. We've had more than we normally ever usually would. All right, it's time to just take a minute, have a breather, come back and start from scratch. And you just have to do that every now and again.
I agree. Completely agree.
I'm not sure if I feel like I might have gone on a slight tangent there.
Just a little one.
What was your original question?
We covered it. The original question is, would you use fuchsia or magenta? But it's all right. You went. That's become the theme, so we're okay.
I think, yeah, definitely. That's our niche, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going on rants.
4-day week we've covered.
Right, 4-day weeks.
Another one I wrote down. Again, obviously, I get to travel in lots of different shops and I see lots of different methods, and sometimes different methods, same result. I'm okay with that. And part of what I do is not to teach the method, but to teach the theory behind the method, and you find your own method. Pallet paper. This is an odd one. So, pallet paper, you probably use it. It used to be called Propal, pallet mask, anything you can call it, really. It's the stuff you put on the pallets to stop you scrubbing them with solvent and getting all the fluff and lint off. So the idea is you put the paper on first, put the glue on the paper, and then it's really easy to change when it gets full of lint. Agreed?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Over this last week, I've been in 2 shops who don't use it.
Really?
Automatic shops, big shops that don't use it and still stand by the deciding factor that it's quicker to wash the pallets with high solvents, make a mess on the floor, clean it all up again, wash all the lint off, dry them, and then straight back on again with the glue.
Yeah.
And I'm stood there saying, no, it's not. We can put the paper on, we can rip the old paper off, put the new paper on. I can do it in about 3 or 4 minutes, even on a 12 colour press. You know, this is really easy and really easy to do. And then I stepped back and went, actually, it's easy for me to do because I've done it millions of times. I've been doing it since it first came out in, crikey, mid-90s.
Yeah.
And it came about, I think it might have been an American sort of migration that came across, and it was just this pallet mask or ProPal, which was like the application tape for vinyl.
Oh, you've just nicked me bleeding shop back. I was about to say that and look all clever.
No, that's all it is. It's nothing special.
I've been buying it from Signwriters for years. It's way cheaper.
Well, yeah, because you buy the 1200 log and you get it cut to whatever size you want, and then you usually have a little bit left over as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they cut it for free. They slit it for free.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
What it got me to do is question who's right here. I know that I can be quicker, but they know they can be quicker and more efficient. So who's right? What do you do?
I pallet tape. I use pallet tape. I've gone back and forth with the Signwriters application tape, and I've tried the double-sided sticky tape as well.
I can't get on with that.
I don't mind it, but you know what? I sort of get lazy, and instead of rubbing it clean, I just spray over the top. Yeah, so it's sort of all right for the first run, and then once it's sort of got covered up, you might as well just stick to normal. I couldn't. You know what? I did get real lazy once, and I didn't tape up my pallets, and I printed it, and I can't get it clean. To this day, I can still see the image that I printed. So, I mean, it hasn't done any harm, but it doesn't look great.
No, but nobody ever sees it.
Nobody ever sees it, but it bugs me. You want a nice. I mean, especially if it's an auto and you've sunk a few quid into it, you want nice, clean, perfectly white pallets, don't you? And also that helps with your measurements as well. If you put your measurements on there, you don't want a scruffy looking pallet where you put your screen on and you can't quite see it. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. I normally have one pallet with a centre line and a 3-finger drop.
Yeah, 3-finger drop. Yeah. Have you ever tried this experiment? Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. It's a slight diversion, but we'll go back to it. Have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried putting a centre line on every single one of your pallets? So for example, mine's a six pallet press, manual press. Put a centre line on every pallet, and then get a screen, burn a centre line on it. Register one of your pallets with a centre line to your screen, right, and then move your screen over to the next one, and then move it to the next one. It doesn't line up. Have you ever tried that?
So
and why is that?
Manuals are different to autos. If you look at the way that the pallets on the manual are held underneath, it's usually a clamping system, which can move your centre line left and right, that mill that you're looking at when you're looking through a screen.
Yeah, because it's always minimal, but
when we go to an auto, the pallets are usually held in by a much more machined clip.
Yeah.
Which is much more precise, and certainly the brand that I deal with, they're automated, so the release mechanism is actually automated. You do it with the press of a digital button.
Right.
And this then allows us to have that constant where, yes, everything is straight, yes, everything is in the centre, irrespective of which pallet you pick.
Yeah.
The reason you're seeing it is there is no commercial payback for the machine manufacturer to be that to have such a small tolerance on where the centre of the shirt will land, because that's all you're looking at, really. You're testing the placement of the image on the shirt, and if it's half a mil to the left, well, I'm sorry, but you can't load that accurately anyway, so it really doesn't fucking matter.
No, I suppose that's true. If I go measure my pallet, my press now, there could be a centimetre either way difference. And
it's only image placement. It's nothing to do with registration. It's just image placement. No.
Yeah, that's right. It's just where the centre line falls on the
What have you got? Have you got a Vastex or have you got a Riley Hopkins?
I've got an Anatole.
Anatole, you've got an Anatole. I'm not familiar with the Anatole press, how the pallets are held on. Are they held on with...
It's the new style M&R, so you know the quick release.
So you got 4 quick releases.
That's right, yeah.
But
And it's quite a chunky.
Yeah, but you could push that to the left a centimetre and still fasten it down, or push it to the right a centimetre and still push it down.
I'm not so sure because it's sort of there's a channel that it slides into, and when you tighten the four, they sort of squeeze it in. You know what I mean? They squeeze it into the centre. I don't know if you could squeeze it slightly to the left, by hand or anything like that.
Yeah, so what I mean is if you were leaning on the right hand side of the pallet, pushing it right, could you still fasten it down? If so, that's where your movement's coming from.
No, it'd still end up in the same place. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it's like you just said. They're not manufactured to that level of precision.
Because they don't need to be.
Of course, they don't need to. I guess they don't really.
Can you do all heads down on your press?
Yeah.
So usually all heads down means that the registration plates are all perfectly lined up.
It's still print perfectly registered.
Oh, it always will. It's just off to one side a little bit.
Yeah, it's just something. If I hadn't done that, I don't know why I did it. Something prompted me to do it. Oh, I'll tell you why I did it. On my old workhorse, the very first press I bought, which went off registration every 20 prints, and I used to have to tap it into place with a hammer, and I checked every bolt, and some bolts were rounded, and all the rest of it. Yeah. When I was sort of rattling my brain trying to get that bugger to just stay in registration, I looked at the centre line and I made a screen specifically to check it, and I put centre line on every pallet, and then I checked it with my screen, and it was miles off on everyone was different. So at the time I thought, this press is wonky as all, something up with it. But in hindsight, when my new press came, my brand new straight from factory, I did the same test, and even though it wasn't to the same extent, but there was a little bit of room left to right on that centre line. But it doesn't change. Like you say, to be honest, it makes no difference whatsoever.
You're talking about image placement on your shirt. That's all it is. It's not registration. It's image placement on the shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
And the tolerances that they're manufactured to aren't as high because they don't need to be. When we step up to autos, I mean, one of the tests I do on setting up a new auto, certainly on the sort of like the MHMs, is to make a screen and put it in every frame holder, and set that frame holder to that zero position, so that no matter which head you put a screen in, it always lands in the centre of the pallet, straight and true.
Yeah.
That's not something you can do with an open clamp system like the Anatol or the M&R or the other presses are available.
Yeah, they're all very good.
They all print t-shirts. I say this time and time again when people say to me, "What's the best machines?" So I've got my favourites because I use them and I like them and I'm familiar with them. And if you took a print from an M&R, an Anatol, a Taz, a Margenshenk, an MHM, an Adelco, and you put them all at the end of the dryer on the table, I couldn't tell you which shirt was printed on which press.
No.
Because if these presses did not print good t-shirts, they wouldn't sell presses.
No, of course not. No. When the day comes, I'm shopping for an automatic. Hopefully not.
What do you mean when the day comes? I've already got you down for one. I've put a deposit on for it.
Oh, well, that's all right then. If you put a deposit, I'm laughing.
I'm looking for somewhere to work on a Friday, when everybody else is doing Monday to Thursday.
That's cool by me. When that day comes, I won't have the luxury of picking the press I want. I'll have to look on the used market, quite pretty likely, and it's a case of what comes around. But whatever press I go with, I'm still gonna be over the moon with the difference it'll make to my life.
Yeah,
going from a manual to an automatic. I can't imagine you'd have to get a real dog of a press that's absolutely knackered to regret going from manual to auto.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, a good friend of mine in America from the Ink Kitchen, Rick, he says that when you're a manual printer, all you're ever trying to do is print like a machine.
Yeah,
you want to try and keep the same angles, kind of keep the same pressure, same speed. Your whole day is spent just trying to print like a machine would print. So when you finally make that move and you go to a machine, it's such a relief that, oh, thank God for that. When I set this pressure and I set this angle and I set this speed, it stays the same all the way through the day. It doesn't want a coffee break. It doesn't need to go and smoke a joint round the back. It's completely happy. It never gets pissed off at me because I looked at it funny this morning. And it's a great investment.
Yeah. The day'll come. So back to pallets. Actually, no, right, hang on. I diverted the conversation. Did we end up back where we started? Did we go back? Did we finish? Did we tick that one off?
We finished it, yeah. I will add on the double-sided thing.
Oh yeah, that was it. Double-sided tape as well.
I tried the double-sided, and if I'm doing an exhibition, so like we've got a press, an expo like Printwear and Promotion or something, or like the FESPA shows, then I like it because chances are I'm not going to be doing more than about 400 or 500 shirts. To refresh it, I don't need any heavy solvents that they don't allow in exhibition halls.
No.
And it lasts and it works for me.
Yeah.
Put that into a production environment, 400 shirts, if it lasts 400, at the speeds we run at, that can be around about maybe 30 to 40 minutes work.
Yeah.
So to have to do something with the pallets that required stopping the machine, the stopping production, washing, cleaning and drying, even though it's with water, purely from an efficiency production point of view, doesn't work. The product's good. The product's, it holds the shirts. It does its job it's supposed to do. But from an efficiency point of view, in a production environment, it doesn't work. In a manual environment, yes, it works. Plus, it's expensive, and you know what I'm like for spending money. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's pricey. It's definitely pricey. I don't know. I quite like it, but I find myself just going back to normal tape. Do you like to cover your pallets, completely cover them, and then wrap the tape around the edges underneath, or do you like to? What I do is I get a tape that's purposely slightly shorter, or width-wise, than my pallet. Run it down the centre, so
you're asking me if I'm a trimmer or a folder, aren't you?
That's the one. No, not really. So obviously, what you're saying is, I could cover the pallet with pallet tape, fold it over the edges, or I could run my knife along the edge and cut it flush. What I do is I get a pallet tape that's slightly not as wide as my pallet. So the pallet tape runs down the centre, and let's just say there's a centimetre at either side. That way, what I find is, and then I'll cut it slightly short as well. So at the very bottom, there'll be a centimetre. So basically, there's a centimetre border of pallet tape around the pallet. And what I find that works best to stop it folding over and catching edges, and before you know it, like one corner's folded over and got a bit manky. If you have it just centered with a little border, it stays flat. You can clean it quite easy. You don't get your shirts don't stick to edges. Or have I just overcomplicated the job?
Do you not find you get a dirty border around your pallets then?
You do, but because it's only a centimetre, I just get a baby wipe, a bit of ink cleaner, and just rub it down the edge, and it just cleans it up. It up fine. If it was the old pallet, like we said earlier, if the old pallet was clear of application tape, because the print you don't really print over edge. Do you know what I mean? So you're not pressing ink on that particular part.
No, I'm a definite to the edge trim with a knife. Or if you buy it perfect, sometimes it can take too long to line up and get it on in the centre every time. If you buy it too small, you get that dirty edge all the time. And nobody puts it on the same place every time. Sorry for you, you're in control of it. But in a bigger shop with 4 or 5 machines, you're never getting in the same place every time. So you end up with different lines down the outside. So yeah, I'm a trimmer. Plus, the honeycomb pallets usually, certainly on the MHMs, have got a breathe hole at the back to stop them overheating and bowing. So that the honeycomb pallets, they have pockets of air inside them. Those pockets of air heat up and help us gel the ink from the back as well as from the front with the flash.
Yeah.
But if they get too hot, the air can swell. So most of the MHM pallets have a little breathe hole at the back. And if you fold your paper over those, you block that hole, and then there's no airflow through the pallet, it gets very hot and can start to delaminate and burr.
So I had this thought, slightly ties into something that I had to think about the other day. You ever thought about just ripping rubber off your pallet and just printing it on metal?
So I'm a massive advocate of no rubber on the pallet.
Really? I thought you were going to tell me off for this.
No.
And I'll tell you my reasoning.
I haven't used rubber on a pallet since '97.
Well, that's blown my mind. I'll tell you my thought process, and I actually thought you were going to say, no, that is a stupid idea. My thought process was, one, I can lower my flash times because the pallet's going to get hotter, so I can cut my flash times down and cut my electric bill down.
Yorkshire twist there.
And two, I actually did. So I've got an Action Engineering double sleeve pallet, and that has no rubber on it. It's just bare metal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just me being a bit daft, but I swear to God, the print on bare metal is slightly crisper than on rubber.
It's about 25% crisper. If you had to put a number on it.
Well, bloody Nora. I'm off the mood about this because I thought I was talking shite. In my head, I had this brief thought about it yesterday, and I thought I'm going to note it down, and I know he's going to slag me off for it, but I'm going to ask him anyway.
No, I love my MHMs. So when the MHMs first came across, I bought my first one 97, and the pallets got delivered, and I'd been on M&Rs ever since beforehand. The pallets got delivered with no rubber on them, and I went, "What the fuck is this? How am I going to print on these?" And I started to print, and I found it was the difference. One of the main differences of that manufacturer was I had now more controllability. I had more flexibility. I could get more detail and more finesse because I had all these different settings on the press that I could use, which I had almost the same settings on the M&R presses. But these flat, smooth, aluminium, shiny pallets allowed me to basically get a lovely crisp print because I wasn't using this rubber base, even though the rubber gets brittle and hard. I still had to use a certain amount of pressure and force to push through and actually accept onto this rubber. Yeah. Now, I'm not, I'm not the sort of like the oracle of this. But I'm just going from my personal experience. I have had customers buy MHMs and request that they put the rubber on, which they will, of course. The customer's always right. If you want rubber on it, we'll put rubber on it. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And I've seen the prints that those produce, and in my opinion, they're not as good as they could be without the rubber. But once you put the rubber on, you can't take it off.
Yeah. And I've noticed a few presses now, even the Rock, they come with metal honeycomb pallets.
Yeah. Honeycomb's the way forward because that solid aluminium block, right? Here's the science bit. What that advert? Here's the science bit. The solid aluminium block. So you've got a centimetre of solid, either alloy or steel or whatever metal they use.
Yeah.
You're applying heat from the top. All that heat that you apply from the top. So now the surface of that metal is up at, let's say, 90 degrees. Underneath of that metal block is only about 60 degrees because obviously the heat is actually applied from the top, not the bottom. Yeah. So here we've got a difference in heat from the top of the pallet and the bottom of the pallet. Now, if you're familiar with the bimetallic strip, where we can get a metal to curve when the top layer shrinks and the bottom layer doesn't.
Yeah.
This is what we're creating in a solid pallet. We're heating the top of the pallet and it's shrinking, but the bottom of the pallet hasn't. So it tends to pull the edges up and bow the pallet.
Right, even a metal pallet?
Yeah, because the differences are so high in the heat of the top and the heat at the bottom. It pulls the edges of the pallets up and you start to bow by, don't forget, if you only bow these pallets by 1 millimetre around the edges, that's 1 millimetre less pressure you haven't got in the centre. The science behind it says an even distribution of heat through the top and the bottom stops the bowing, and using that pocket of air inside the pallet itself to start getting that ink up to its gel temperature of about 90 degrees on a plastisol ink, then we then require less energy from the top, from the flash.
Yeah.
which is why we have a preheat system on most machines. Most autos have a preheat system which allows us to put heat into the pallets and maintain that heat all the way through. I do say this a lot, that when you start printing on auto, there is a little bit of obviously skill required in printing, but there's a lot of heat management involved as well.
Yeah, I've come across this. I went to one of the ink manufacturers, and I was looking at their auto for the first time, and it's amazing how much goes into getting the pallets to the right temperature.
There's a lot of M's in that, isn't there?
There's a lot of M's in that, yeah. They're Yorkshire based as well.
Yeah, not far from me. That Dodworth area, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. To conclude on this one then, the science and my thought process was quite good.
Yeah.
But in practicality, probably best not to rip my rubber off.
No.
To warp them. Yeah, when I go auto, aircomb pallets. Yeah. Aircomb? Honeycomb pallets.
Yeah, we can trademark that. Aircomb. Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean.
Right. I feel like I've hijacked this week. So, have you got anything on your list that you wanted to bring up?
I was going to give you a shop hack. Are you ready for this?
Go on.
There's going to be a lot of shops that are going to be absolutely buzzing with me for this little one.
Go for it.
I can save people hundreds, if not thousands.
Well, hang on. Is there a way we can make money out of this before you go public with it?
No.
Okay.
The shop hack is this. Don't use expensive degreasers and ink wash. If you're a water-based printer, use washing up liquid. What say you, Tony? How do you feel about that?
Well, as a degreaser, I would come round and smack you around the face with a squeegee until you stopped bleeding and came to your senses. And this is coming from someone who doesn't like to spend money. But if you ever use Fairy Liquid on a screen to degrease it, me and you could stop being friends. And are you ready for the science behind it?
That was the exact reaction I was hoping to get out of you. I did. That was not a genuine tip. I just wanted to get a reaction out of you.
So I've been to a massive, huge shop in the north of England who would insist on using Fairy Liquid instead of degreaser because they thought it was saving money. We're talking about a £50 million a year turnover company saving money on fucking degreaser. Yeah. The science behind it. When you wash your dishes in the sink with Fairy Liquid, or when you get somebody else to, then then when they come out, they look really shiny, don't they? And lovely and clean and shiny and glossy.
Yeah.
That glossy shininess comes from the silicone that's in the Fairy Liquid.
Yeah.
So silicone is the slippery substance known to man. Other than a Yorkshireman at the bar, because he's definitely slippery. So we don't want that silicone anywhere near our screen before we're trying to put emulsion on it and get the emulsion to stick to it. So therefore, we use a degreaser that has a soap, because degreaser is only soap, detergent, but we use a detergent that has no silicone in it to make it look shiny, which is why we don't use it. So if you're going to use anything, use the cheap supermarket own brand stuff that hasn't got anything shiny in it. Or spend an extra £5 a year and buy some degreaser.
Yeah, don't use Fairy Liquid. I was only trying to get a reaction out of you.
Well, it worked.
I know exactly. I thought we could do a segment, and every week I'll come up with a shop hack that is utterly ludicrous, just to see how you'll react, and allow you to
poo-poo it,
debunk it. Yeah, it'd be like screen print Mythbusters, wouldn't it?
Mythbusters, yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah, Mythbusters. Let's do it.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you one more question before we go off for his tea.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you'd gone to see Ed Sheeran. Are you doing all right after that? you don't need a chat out, do you? I'm here to listen to you.
I'm seeking professional help, don't you worry. Oh, we're a low blow. Thanks for that. Let me write that one down. Let me write that one down.
Revenge for a little bit later.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to come to Barbados this weekend and actually see exactly what you're doing. Right, well, I think we've pretty much filled our time, haven't we?
We've had a good one, this one. Slightly longer than normal. But
Slightly longer than normal, but and completely unscripted, as usual, off on different tangents. We will get back to the whole future of magenta debate eventually. And so basically, it leaves me to sign off with you been listening to Tony and
Danny.
There we go. We'll get this absolutely slick one day.
Slightly faster than last week.
Slightly, yeah. This has been Chippy Tee, an irrelevant. That's good. And a slightly irrelevant look at this past week, with a little bit of screen printing thrown into the middle. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like on all the available podcasts wherever you get yours from.